Welcome back. This is Jeremy Berger at McDowell Elementary. I am a math and science teacher for 5th grade, and today we are going to be looking at the connection between place value and rounding decimals. So I have written a decimal number. This is 23 and 462 thousandths, and we're going to look at how we would round each of these numbers to various place values. So place value usually works from left to right, so we're going to start with the tens and rounding this number to the nearest 10. So the first thing that you need to do when you're going to round any of these numbers is identify what place value you are rounding to. So if I am rounding to the nearest tens, I notice my decimal is here. That would be ones, that would be tens. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to underline the place value that I'm rounding to. The next step when you're going to round any number is you want to look one place value to the right. So I'm going to circle that because this is the number we're going to be looking at to round this number to the nearest 10. So if I'm rounding, the general rule goes, if it's between 0 and 5, it stays the same. Sorry, 0 to 4, it stays the same. And 5 to 9, it rounds up. And this will work whether you're dealing with standard place value or decimal place value. So if I look at this number, I will see that it is a 3. It is in the bottom half of my numbers, so that number is going to stay the same. So to write this and round it to the nearest place value of tens, I'm going to start, how many tens do I have? I have 2, and this 3 will say that I do not round it up. So this is going to be a 0. And it makes sense because 23 is closer to 20 than it is to 30. This would be the number that would change in that case. So because 23 is closer to 20 than to 30, this number would be rounded to the nearest 10 as 20. So I'm going to write this number again, and this time we're going to look at it in terms of ones. So I have 23 and 462 thousandths. So again, I'm going to start by underlining the place value that I'm supposed to round to. In this case, it would be the ones place, which is a 3. I have 3 ones. And the number I'm looking at to see whether it will round up or stay the same is my 4. So in this case, I know that I'm going to have 20, and then this 4 would say it is closer to 3 than to 4, so I'm going to leave that at 3. So this rounded to the nearest ones place would be 23. Now, if you notice, I did not put any decimals on here. When you are rounding, especially when you're rounding with fractional pieces and decimals, you only want to go to the place value that it is asking for. So I'll show you that with this next number. 23 and 462 thousandths. Now I'm rounding to the nearest tenths. So I have to identify where my tenth spot is. I underline that. And I'm going to look one place value to the right to see what I need to do. So I already know that I'm going to have 23 and a decimal because I am going to end in the ones spot. I look at this 6. Because the 6 is closer to the next whole number, I have more than half. I am going to round this number up to 5. Now, if it is asking to the nearest tenths, you only want to end up with a number that has the tenths. While there are equivalent fractions such as 23 and 50 hundredths or 500 thousandths, that is not rounded to the nearest tenths. This will be the last place value that you end up with when you were rounding these numbers. So in this case, right away I already know I'm going to end up with hundredths being my last place value. So let's take a look at how we would round this number to the nearest hundredths. So I have to identify my place value. This is my hundredths, which means I'm going to look one place to the right to identify what I need to do with this number. That happens to be the thousandth spot. So I know these numbers are going to stay the same because I'm rounding all the way to the hundredths place value. Okay, so this is going to stay a 4. This 2 is in the bottom half of the numbers, which means if I have a fractional piece, it's going to be closer to 6 than to 7. So as far as this goes, this number is going to stay the same. Now, again, you don't want anything past that place value, because if you're rounding to the hundredths, you want hundredths to be your last place value spot. So that is how you would round whole numbers and decimals to the correct place value.